And what you've done is three things. You've built an audience, you've connected with your audience, and you made an offer to your audience, versus typically what we do as physical product brands is we say, I'm going to create a really great product. I'm going to try and shoot fantastic photos and then really hunker down with social and maybe advertising and hope that people buy from me. But there's no incentive to do it now.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Small Business PR Podcast. I am so excited to have a multi-passionate entrepreneur, course creator, product founder, ads expert managing over $1 million in paid traffic, and an expert in 5-day challenges, the one and only Zach Spunkler. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So, I've never really given an intro like that where I've added so many things. So if anyone's listening and who is multi-passionate, this episode is for them.
Yes. For sure.
So you've done so many things, but I guess the one thing that I want to ask you first and foremost is you've tried all the things, right? You've tried the ads, you've tried the courses, the memberships, the Instagrams, the TikToks, the podcasts. Talk to me a little bit about all the different things you've tried and what you enjoy doing most in terms of growing your audience.
Yeah,
online.
I love this question because I really started online around the age of 12. And I know I was 12 because at 13, you can use your social security number on certain websites to get checks. And before that, you have to use somebody else's. So I used my dad's social security number because it would have been 2007, maybe. I was filling out surveys online, which is this super old school. If you've been around the internet for years and years and years, they used to call it get paid to do things. And you would get paid to do surveys or, fill out forms. Anyway, I used to do that. And the only reason I share that is because I've always had this real love for the idea of creating revenue and freedom out of nothing. So from a very young age, I've been there's something to this internet thing. I used to be a member of this website. It was called NeoBucks. It still exists because every once in a while I'm I've got to know if it's still around. And you actually used to click on advertisements for a penny a piece. You get paid a penny to watch an advertisement for 15 to 30 seconds. And after you do that, you can use your earnings to recruit affiliates under you. And I ended up having 1,500 people under me. I generated $15,000 doing this when I was 16 years old. So these are super random and have nothing to do with growing your audience. But I share that because that is the approach that I still take to my business. I'm just very curious, inquisitive. I want to know what's happening. I want to try different things. So the short list is I've done freelance writing, website flipping, physical products. I've done direct sales, multi-level marketing. I've done courses, memberships, masterminds, group coaching programs. If you can try it, I've tried it. And I always like to share that too, because I think so many of us get pigeonholed in the online space to be you must do that one thing. And granted, having done multiple things at once, you do go further when you focus on one or two things. But I don't ever think it hurts to experiment or explore the things that get you excited or lit up. We had a candle company for a little while. We actually just sold it a couple weeks ago. We got bought out, which was super exciting after owning it for only a year. And that was super fun too. But the thing is, I didn't love making candles. And I promise there's a point to this. I didn't love after about 3 to 6 months. I was this is so tedious. I don't want to make another freaking candle. If I see another candle in my life, I'm going to die. But I loved the marketing. I loved the promotion. I loved the advertising. I loved the email marketing, and experimenting and playing with things that you're not sure if you're going to love or hate has always been this gateway for me to reconnecting to what I really love. And I can honestly look back at the trend and say when I did direct sales or multi-level marketing, I was one of the first people to use advertising. I was doing team trainings for people on how to grow your following online with advertising, whereas everyone else was add a friend, start a connection, make your list, reach out to 100 people. I was what if you just advertise? You just do that. And so there is this recurring trend in my life that is no matter what I do, the thing that excites me about it is generating something out of nothing and marketing. And so after doing probably 7 to 10 years of just dabbling, I was you know what? I'm going to start a marketing company. I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. I've seen success with my vegan food blog. I had a cookbook. I had a recipe book. I had done Kickstarters and things like that. And I was you know what? I'm going to start a marketing company. I don't necessarily know that I'm going to teach people to make $1 million, because I haven't done that, but I can show them how to be one step ahead of where they are right now. And our kind of like vow from day one was we were just going to be honest, transparent, and tell people like, I can't promise you millions, but I can tell you how I'm getting like that next step that a lot of people are chasing. We always like to be just one step ahead. And fast forward 7 years later, I've been running Heart, Soul, and Hustle for 7 years, which is crazy. And we have spent like over $1 million on advertising. We work with and have managed launches from 25,000 to $1 million as ad managers. You know, it's just, and I know this is like, you gave me the floor, so I'm taking it. But I don't say all this to brag. I say it because I think so many times it's like, what qualifies people or like what qualifies me? And for me, nothing qualified. It was just pure curiosity, pure passion, and consistency, transparency, and honesty has really just taken our company to where it is now. And now I get to do fun stuff like this where we have our membership and we just talk about it and we sell products at price points that feel good to us and we do fun podcast interviews. So yeah.
I love that you said the word curiosity because I think there's so many different tension points and scarcity mindsets when you just start out. And even when you do make money, then you're afraid of losing it, right? So at every point, there's always this struggle between the things I want to do and the things that I know I need to do to feel safe. And it seems like you've done all the different things. So, my audience is mostly, 90% women, product owners. And the number one question is, I'm bootstrapping. I barely have anything to give in terms of like marketing. So they're not able to maybe take those risks, right? So what would you say in terms of like mindset that could help them? And then also like actionable steps that they actually should try?
Yeah, this is such a good question. So for me, mindset is always such a loaded topic, right? Because there's two extremes. There is the get your mind right and your business will explode. And then there is mindset is just a piece of the puzzle and it doesn't really mean anything. And I think that there is this middle ground of like, look, numbers are numbers. Numbers don't lie to you, but the stuff going on between your ears can definitely influence and affect the way you see and interpret and leverage those numbers. So for me, the one thing I always tell people is like, look, when you start a business, there are costs, right? And I think we've been spoiled by the internet, really. And one of my favorite things to do is tell people, if you think 30 years back, right, before the internet was even really a thing, maybe even more now. I used to say 30 years, but now it's probably closer to 40, which is crazy. But long time ago, pre-internet, you would go to the bank with a business plan, ask for a loan, rent a storefront, buy inventory, get product, invest in salespeople, hire employees, and you don't have to do that. And so we, as a society of business owners, have been conditioned that, oh, well, now that I have the internet, it should be cheap or free or non-existent cost. And I'm not saying that it's not important to be mindful of your costs and your numbers. It totally is. But there are costs associated with doing business, right? So the first thing I tell people is adjust your mind to not say, these are expenses, but these are opportunities for me to invest in my business and myself, right? And I always tell people you either lose money and learn or you gain money and you learn. So you're going to learn no matter what. A perfect example, I know you're in the physical product space. A lot of people think like Klaviyo is like the hot button email marketer, but it's like, it starts at like $50 a month. And a lot of people are like, I don't have $50 a month to spend. And I'm like, right, but you have to change the way you think about that, because if that email software buys you 2 new sales a month at $50 average order value, it's paying for itself, right? Especially if you don't have other marketing costs yet because you're not advertising or things like that. So the way that I look at costs in my business is not how much does this cost me? I'd say, what's the potential ROI on this choice that I'm making today? That's the first part. The second piece in terms of like security and safety, that really never goes away in my experience. That's something you just continue to work on and kind of sit with. I personally am somebody who like, I can hoard a ton of money and then I can turn around and blow it all like the next day, right? Very clear pattern in my life, something that I'm working on and exploring, but there is a reason that you're doing both, right? And so it's looking at that with a critical eye and asking the questions of like, when I'm holding on to my money, why am I doing that, right? Is it because I'm afraid it's going to go away? It's not going to be here. And you can answer those questions with business decisions. So like with us, one big thing we looked at, we were in a full agency model. We didn't have any memberships or courses. And I said, it just feels like unstable. Like we lose a client and then we have to find them and replace them. And we didn't want to scale it past a certain point for personal reasons and the size of my team that I like to have. And we basically said, well, what would create a sense of like security or consistency in revenue? And for us, it was like a membership, right? So we started a membership. We now have about 300 people on it. It's on a 6-figure run rate in its first 6 months. And we are like, that gives us that sense of security, right? So there is the side of things that's like, you have to evaluate where you're feeling like stuck or broken, or there's definitely like a mindset issue, but you can address those and look at them and say, what is causing that to happen? And how can I create systems, processes, and business decisions that help me offset that? Opposite side of the token is like, I'm a big spender, right? So I don't do like the advertising online of like, look at me in first class and look at me on the plane and look at me with my bags. But I would be lying if I didn't say I have a few nice bags and I don't mind first class, right? It's just not part of my brand. That's not what I'm aspiring. That's not what my audience is aspiring for, is to live this posh, high-end LA palm trees, Chanel bag, first class, Emirate Air lifestyle. It's just not. And that's okay. I love it. But when I'm doing that, a lot of times I have like looked at that and said, well, a big reason I do that is because like I want to experience it while I have it. And so I also get to ask the questions, am I making this decision out of fear? Am I making this decision out of scarcity? Or am I making this decision out of abundance, right? And I think that is a question we can always be asking ourselves, is like, am I thinking abundantly? Am I thinking scarcity minded? Or is this really just a thought that I just have to work with, right? So really long answer to a short question basically is, analyze why and how you're doing things, and just start having the conversations with yourself and your business decisions to how you compensate for and address those at the same time.
Oof, I just got to take a moment. I feel like you just gave us 4 years of Buddhist Zen wisdom. Oh my God. I mean, it hits so many points for me as I overcome my scarcity mindset. I realize my anxiety has been creeping up. But 2 things you said really stood out to me. One is like, what is the ROI, as opposed to like, oh my God, this is another expenditure. Mm-hmm. And so seeing your money as kind of like a tool instead of it just being like a measure of your success, that's probably something I have to work on for the rest of my life. But I do notice that, we're in the same mastermind. Like the question that always comes up, it's like, are you just playing not to lose, or are you playing to win? Because it's a completely different outcome. So that's number one. So if anyone's out there like multitasking, rewind to this part, because you need to ask yourself, especially as we record this in Q1, is, are you playing not to lose and trying to hold on for your dear life? Or are you playing to win because you know that the success is inevitable, right? So how would you act? So that's number one. Number 2 is, you said, I want to experience things while I have it. Mm-hmm. That is incredible, because I think so many people are like, it's not an experience, it's just a number, it's just a goal. And I think because you've been able to have that curiosity, you've done all the things. You have a candle company, you have a membership, you have a course, you have a 5-day challenge, and now you're able to make the impact. Because I bought your 5-day challenge launch toolkit, and it changed my business. And you probably wouldn't have created it if you had that mindset of like, what's the number, what's the end goal.
Yeah. And, we took this really radical approach into our business. That was, we started pricing everything lower than industry average. And that has been one of the best things we've ever done, not because there's anything wrong with premium pricing. Like, there's not. It's just, I don't want to curate premium experiences. And for a long time, I found myself, offering like $1,000 training or a $5,000 a quarter or a half year mentorship. And I was like, I just felt so much pressure to perform. And that was a big part of what I didn't like about my business. And I said, well, if things were just cheaper and I showed up at the same level that I'm capable of showing up at, everything would feel different. And we did that. And we have a $37 course. We've sold like 1,500 copies of it. We have 300 people in our active membership. We routinely do stuff for like $200 to $700 that would generally be more expensive, just in our industry average. And we fill those up and we generate influxes of revenue when we want it. And there's no pressure to be like, oh my gosh, this has to be like an amazing top level, top notch experience. Now, I show up that way. I still think, how can I make this an incredible experience for people? But I'm not feeling the pressure of having to. I feel the opportunity of getting to. And even that subtle shift was just a game changer for us.
Oh my God, Zach, are you sure you're not like a spiritual teacher? Because I feel like you feel like you need to have a podcast just on like the mindset when it comes to business. Because I've interviewed a lot of entrepreneurs, but you've dropped so many gems just within the last 60 seconds. Definitely going to re-listen to this episode. So now I want to get into, I mean, I could talk to you for hours, but I think one thing for a lot of my audience is like, you've tried all the things to grow your audience. You know, you tell people that there's a difference between like traffic, ads, and revenue. And then I want to talk a little bit more about like the 5-day challenge, because I think that's something new that people are like, what's that? Or like, it doesn't pertain to me. So maybe kind of start with like the different things you've tried and like why a 5-day challenge? Why should someone who doesn't even know what that is listen to this episode?
Yeah. So contextually, just to understand, like a 5-day challenge is just a launch mechanism, right? There's so many different ways that we launch our products. And it's funny that you said you have a lot of beauty professionals, because I have like a secret like beauty makeup obsession that a lot of people don't know about. And one of my favorite companies just did a launch today. And the way that they launched their product, this will come full circle, I promise. But the way that they launched their product was they have a big YouTube presence, they have a big social following, and they basically like tease to the moment when the new collection launches. And it launched literally 10 minutes before we got on. So I was so glad at the time you picked, because I was like, perfect, I'm going to have time to buy it. And we buy the PR pack, and we buy all the things from the collection, and like that's just something we do. We love to do that, my partner and I. So here's the thing. The average person, especially if you're a newer beauty brand, doesn't have a multi-million YouTube following, doesn't have multi-million on social media, doesn't have these things. And so we see companies do these things that we try to emulate. And we go, oh, I'm going to post on my Instagram, and I'm going to make an unboxing video, and I'm going to do these things. And the problem is you're emulating based on the surface things you see. You're not emulating based on the things that a company is doing. And there's just this little subtlety to understand here, which is when someone has, 1 million YouTube followers, you can just go, our new product drops next week, here's the collection reveal. But as a newer brand or a smaller brand, you can't do that because you don't have an audience. So this is where a 5-day challenge comes into play. It's basically creating an audience of people that are interested in your products, services, whatever, and then putting an offer in front of them. So what we do with our 5-day challenges is we figure out what problem or issue our product or service solves. And then we go 2 steps back and say, what is the problem that our audience is experiencing or wants to solve now that I can teach them on that will ultimately show them, hey, I have a deeper solution for you, right? We call it the PSP model, problem, solution, problem. Your audience has a problem, you solve it, it uncovers a deeper problem that your product or service solves, right? So perfect example for beauty industry would be like, if you are selling like eye palettes, right? If that's your best seller, maybe your audience is like, I want to do like a really high quality smoky eye, or I want to do a really high quality, neon palette, right? Because when you do neons, you like sometimes you have to use different tones, or you have to change the way it looks on your face, right? So, and you can see the makeup nerd in me coming out a little bit, but the thing is, you want to ask like, what do they want, right? And so you could do a challenge that's like, create your signature eye look in just 5 days. And then at the end, you say, we've talked about it. Now, if you have your signature look, great. Here are our favorite tools that we've been using. Here are the palettes that we've been using in our videos. Here are the products that we use and recommend. And then you can just give them an opportunity with some sort of launch promotion. So a launch promotion in layman's terms is basically like some sort of special or limited time thing. So the company that we like, they do a PR box, right? They're big enough that they do a PR box. And so they're like, hey, you want to get your PR box, you can only buy 2. There's only 2 available per order, and we're limited in stock. And so you best believe they dropped at 10 a.m. that at 10:01, I was on there adding 2 PR boxes to my cart because I didn't want to miss it, right? It's that feeling of exclusivity and like uniqueness and limited time and scarcity that you're kind of tapping into. And when you do things like that, people say, oh, there's incentive to take action. The biggest thing I will say about this, though, is that it can't be fake. It can't be manufactured. So if you've got 1,000 PR boxes, you're not going to go, I have 50 PR boxes, so you better grab one. People can sense fake. People can sense lies, basically. So don't lie for the sake of trying to generate revenue. Be transparent and honest about what you're doing. And you can use things like, we have limited stock, or we're only doing this for the next 3 days, or, this is just for people who took our challenge. So the way that the whole thing functions is a traditional company that has an existing audience says announcement, promotion, drop. What we do is we do promotion, content, drop. And what you've done is three things. You've built an audience, you've connected with your audience, and you made an offer to your audience, versus typically what we do as physical product brands is we say, I'm going to create a really great product. I'm going to try and shoot fantastic photos and then really hunker down with social and maybe advertising and hope that people buy from me, but there's no incentive to do it now. With a challenge, you build up a fan base, you help that fan base become loyal by really giving to them, and then you make an offer. And so that is how we see challenges as a really thriving opportunity, especially in the physical product space, because people aren't doing them. The perception is that I don't need to educate my audience. But the reality is, when you look at like some of the top beauty brands, like let's just take MAC, for example. How often, if you're on the MAC mailing list, are they sending you like a YouTube video, right? How often are they sending you, or just uploading to their YouTube channel? How often are they doing the buying guide, the color matching guides, right? We see that as, oh, that's just them coming up with an excuse to talk to me. Whereas the deeper reason is that is them creating content that is developing brand loyalty. I'm not going to watch a color matching video from MAC and then go to Ulta and buy, Morphe shade because that's not where I connected with it, right? So anything you can do to build trust and connection with your audience is just a game changer. And especially for online brands, this is such a good opportunity because especially with beauty products, people want to touch them, feel them, experience them. And live video and video content, which I know we can kind of get into how that plays in, but within our challenges, we do live videos as well. And we're just like, here's your opportunity to like really showcase your stuff, show your chops, right? Because the average person that has a beauty brand doesn't get into it because it's profitable. They get into it because they love beauty. And so there's just so much potential to connect with your audience. So that's the very second long answer to a very short question, but feel free to dig around in there and ask me anything else.
Well, I will say because I have actually listened to your episode on Amy Porterfield. That's how I found you. And when I was trying to grow my audience during the peak of COVID, I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this 5-day challenge a try. And I was so shocked at the engagement. I mean, now with that Facebook group that you told me to start, it has 4,000 people on there. And that's my main source of social proof. I have people posting in there every day. I got the PR starter pack, right? But you're saying it works for anything. It depends on, like, you can be a dog walker, or you can make Japanese origami, or you could be a service provider, right? What it is just getting people into one space, whether it's Facebook or something, and then dripping out content. So I guess my next question is, so someone's like, whoa, Zach, like I'm just making lip glosses in my garage. I have no idea about email, content, Facebook ads manager. So how can you make this less intimidating? Because it sounds like you need a lot of marketing knowledge.
Yeah, this is such a misnomer because the average person who's doing this, like we made candles in our garage. So we actually renovated our whole garage before we moved to a new house. And then we renovated part of our basement to make candles in our garage and then our basement. And what's funny is that we give ourselves, I don't want to say excuses, but we create these stories that we kind of play over and over again until we believe them. And they're things like, I'm not a marketer, I just make lip gloss, right? But if you were to go to your next door neighbor, just role play with me, you knock on the door and you say, hey, I have to run out of town, but I have 50 orders that need to go out. I left you the recipe for how to make my lip gloss. You said I could call in a favor. I'm so sorry to bother you, but can you just make 50 glosses for me and ship them out through Shopify? Your neighbor's going to go, I don't make gloss. I don't use Shopify. I don't know how to ship. I don't know how to pack. I don't know how to brand, but you do. And so we discredit ourselves for the things we haven't done without crediting ourselves for the things we have done. If you're already packing, shipping, making, and product, like literally developing and selling a product, even if you've sold one, even if you haven't sold any, you've already learned so much. So give yourself that permission to say, I actually do know what I'm doing when it comes to making lip gloss. The reality is that is a skill that I developed. Marketing is a skill. Emailing is a skill. Advertising is a skill. You've already proven to yourself that you can develop a skill. So don't look at this as, oh my gosh, I've got to learn everything. No, this is, I get to learn something new that's going to make me sharper in my business and sharper in my life. And the cool thing that I've learned about entrepreneurs and business owners is we all have this fear about taking on something new. But at the end of the day, it's learning those new things that ultimately gets us excited. So it's like this double-edged sword where on one side is excitement, one side is fear. But like, think about how nervous you were to start your brand or to ship out that first product and just kind of like cross your fingers you were going to get that positive review back, right? And do things happen? Sure, you're going to get the negative review. You're going to get the, it broke in the mail. I don't like the smell. This, I wouldn't have paid this much for it. Sure, that's part of the game. But when you realize that you have the ability to develop skills, you can say, you can choose to say, and I know that sounds easy, but as you develop the skills, you're going to go, oh my gosh, this was so easy, right? I think a great example, you know, Gloria, would probably be you. Like, I imagine when you started this podcast, you were just like, I know how to podcast, so I'm going to do it. You were like, oh, I've got to figure out the software and the recording and the editing and the publishing. But you did figure it out. And so you have to have, you know, they say like fear is false evidence appearing real, right? So give yourself credit because it is false evidence. You have the proof right in front of you that you can do this. So don't discredit yourself in an attempt to avoid something scary. Credit yourself in an attempt to learn something new.
Ooh, another mic drop moment, and with a little bit of Zen wisdom. So thank you so much for affirming that. And I'm going to, wow, that was so deep. So you've answered my question about mindset, about how everything we've done is like just from not knowing, and we know. Can you give me an example of just the life-changing or business-changing transformation from some of your previous 5-day challenge listeners or audiences?
Totally. So we actually have a client who used some of our templates and outlined to, they full transparency, were a massively successful multi-million-dollar company, but they had a $1.2 million launch with their challenge, and they used some of the strategies that we put in place. You're a great example. We have people all the time that grab the idea of a challenge, start a Facebook group, and now a year later, you've got over 4,000 people in there that are just constantly giving you that social proof. We just had another girl who had a $97 product, and she was like, I don't know if I can sell this. I feel like it might be too expensive. And I was like, just go for it. She sold 22 of them in her first challenge promotion. I think she was at an 80% profit margin. We've had people fill up high-end programs. We've had people sell low-end products. So, you know, I get excited because it's easy to be like, look at what I've done with the challenge, but our students just crush it. They crush it time and time again. And the coolest thing that we've seen is that they actually get people paying attention. And I think for me, that is the most transformative thing, is that as a business owner, 80 to 90% of the time, it feels like we're chasing trends, which we are, and yelling into the void. So we're like, oh, reels are where it's at. I'm going to do this reel. And maybe one does well. And then you're like, oh my gosh, no one's watching my reels. And then TikTok is the thing. And you're like, no one's watching my TikToks. And you're like, maybe I'll use a Facebook group, and no one's posting my Facebook group. And we're always fighting to be seen. And the biggest result that we see people is they feel visible. And, you know, feelings are one of the most valid things we have, right? They're not always a true depiction of the reality, but they are how we feel. We can't deny our feelings. And when you feel empowered and visible and present to your company and your products, that to me is always the biggest win. Like I said, we've got number wins. We've got the group growth and the revenue and the first time sales. But I think as an outside observer, it's that confidence that to me is the most exciting result people see.
All right. So that's one thing that I've learned as well when I did your challenge toolkit is I had no idea how to build an entire online business, which I have now. So I started from not even knowing what a funnel was to like now having all these automations. So it is possible. I guess another thing is now that you've told me about all the applications of a challenge and it's getting people to like be in a container of like accountability and inspiration and you leading them, how does that actually play out? Because some people don't want to be on video and some people don't like to write emails. So what are the key components of this challenge?
So there's 3 key components. There's a daily email, a daily live video, and then regular promotion via either advertising and or email marketing. This is what I will tell people. A lot of people say, I don't know if I want to do live video. And that's fine, right? But it's not going anywhere, right? You're listening to this. This is being recorded live. You might be watching it. You might be looking at like a snippet of it online. We know that people connect with video, right? And to me, the best part about business is that this is a really bad example because I hate roller coasters. So I don't do roller coasters. I've done like 2 in the past 5 years when somebody really pushes me to do it. But it's comparable to like that wait in the line. Like it's really uncomfortable. You don't know what's going to happen. It's like super unnerving. And then you get on the roller coaster and this is where it's a little different. I personally don't ever enjoy it. I'm kind of like, it's over. But you do it and then you're like, well, like it was 90 seconds of my life, right? And the roller coaster, the reason I say I think it's a good and a bad example is like, that is the reality. You're going to go live and then it's going to be over. And that's it, right? And in the grand scheme of things, a 15, 20, 30-minute live stream, a podcast interview like this, it's a drop in the bucket, right? This interview will clock in at, 30 minutes. There's 172 hours in a week or something like that. So literally I've used 1% of my time for the week to do this. And like, that is not a big amount of time. It's just not, right? And when you look at the whole month, it's like 1/3 of a percent. And when you look at the whole year, it's like a moment in time. So the advice that I give to people who are like, I don't want to do video or I'm not great at email is like, just do it anyway, right? Because when you started, you weren't good at making your product. You weren't good at branding your product. You weren't good at marketing your product. And you're getting better every day. So why, here's the hard truth is other people are going to put their opinions, doubts, and perceptions on you anyway. Why do that to yourself too? People are going to say, you can't do this. You're not good enough. You're not this. You're not that. Don't be another person doing that to yourself. Say, I don't know if I can do live video, but I'm going to try it. And who knows, you might be a natural. I personally thrive on live video. I'm very off the cuff. I like to talk, and maybe I like the sound of my own voice a little too much. Who knows? But I can go. And live video is a huge part of what grew my business in the early days. But the idea of just going live, we went live about 3 to 5 times a day, every day for about a year. There was different apps back then, so it wasn't the same as just going live on Facebook over and over. But, that was terrifying. And little things that I didn't realize I was judging myself or holding myself back. We use Periscope, which is super old school. If you don't even remember it, that's okay. It was like Twitter's version of live streaming. And I would do live streams while I was walking down the street, right? And I would do live streams in public and I would do them in my backyard. And I've had times where somebody would be like, what are you doing? Or my neighbor would go like, are you talking to me? And I'd be like, oh no, I'm on video, And yeah, it's uncomfortable and weird in the moment. But that is a skill that has allowed me to do things like this, where after doing that every day for a year and just coming up with stuff to talk about, now I can come on a podcast and talk. I can come on live video and talk. I can do these challenges and not feel like I need to prepare for hours and hours on end. But when I started, I would script everything out on a little sticky note, and I had a little notebook that I wrote everything in. So don't cripple yourself saying, or hold yourself back by saying, I have judgments about what I've never even done, when other people are going to judge you for what you're doing either way.
That is so profound. I mean, that's so true, right? You only know, no one wakes up and is like, I know how to send emails, right? Like I send an email to my entire mailing list with a typo in the very first word.
I do that all the time. That's my life.
Right? And then once you're comfortable with that, you're like, no one really cares. And the one person who was upset. Oh, here's another funny story is when I did my launch, somebody literally wrote in the email, screw you, you can go to hell, in capital letters. And then I actually responded because he was upset that I didn't respond to his email. I actually said, hey, we actually did respond. And he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I cannot believe I let my anger out on you. I've been having supplier issues. So it's just a projection of what they're going through, right? So you just got to be comfortable with that in order to unlock all the other opportunities. Another thing I will say is I think a lot of people are like, I don't know how to market. I don't know how to write sales copy, but all of those things, there's templates for that.
There's templates for everything. And there's skills that you develop too, right? So, it's very similar to reading. You don't pick up Harry Potter in kindergarten and go, oh, I'm going to learn to read, right? You read a picture book and then a picture and word book, and then a little less pictures, a little more words, and then it gets a little more complicated and it evolves. And that's the same as sales copy. You're not going to write this wonderful email on day one. When we had our physical product company, I remember writing these emails and being like, this is so different from writing an email that's come join my membership. I don't know what to talk about. We only had 12 different products. I couldn't put all 12 in every email. It was hard. And then in about a year, we were like, it's just another email. We'll just write the emails. And then we hired a company that gave us templates, and we were like, we'll just use the templates. And then after using the templates for about 3 months, we were like, oh, I'm starting to see the patterns. And then I evaluated the patterns and I started writing my own emails without templates. And that is the evolution of everything that you do. It's all like that. So just don't be down on yourself for not being perfect. The most people lose the game because they don't play. Don't be that person, right? Just send the email. The worst thing that's going to happen is people don't resonate and don't click. Or maybe somebody's going to write something nasty back. We've had some whack emails come through. I had somebody who was like obsessed with me for 2 years, would email every time I emailed back. We would block them. They'd sign up under a new email. Like, it was crazy. But guess what? Nothing happened. Like, it was just somebody projecting their own insecurities onto me. So don't let other people's projections hold you back, because you can learn all that, right? And I know this is like a really high level talk, but just to be super actionable is like, send the email. Just send the email, right? And I remember one of the first times I sent an email, I was so nervous to send it. I actually had somebody else send it for me, because I was like just so nervous to hit the send button. I was like, just all you have to do is just click that button. They're like, well, you can click it. I was like, yeah, but just click it for me. Just click the button, and it's little things like that. It's like whatever it takes, because it all comes back to that. It's just that fear holding you back. So just send the email, right? Just send the email, just post the Instagram, just shoot the reel, just do the video, whatever you're thinking. I know this could help me, but I don't know how. You know enough to do it, right? You know enough to Google how to send an email with Klaviyo. You are that smart. I know you are, because you found this podcast. Just do it. Try it. Get it wrong. Mess it up. Because that first step is what leads to the 1,000th step, but you can't make that 1,000th step where you're a full functioning company until you do something to take the first step.
Thank you for that. And I think for anyone that's listening, it's like, if you haven't tried a 5-day challenge, you definitely should do it, no matter what industry you're in, because I personally tried it. To be able to go live, whether it's for 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the Facebook group, having everyone in their Facebook group introducing themselves. I had people make business besties. I had people meet up in real life from these challenges. It's just about, I think a lot of people think 5-day challenge is like, I don't know, maybe think it's like a marathon or some kind of physical activity. But for me, from a consumer's point of view, what it is rallying a group of people who share the similar vision in like a safe space. So whether that's a Facebook group, whether that's email, and it was just so transformative to be able to lead them, right? Whether it's talking about how to use the best facial massage tools or how to use like this rose hip oil, right? And they're asking questions, and that's how you sell. It's not just by giving someone a coupon, but just like being invested in their journey, whether it's beauty or psychology or whatever. So on that note, Zach, how can people find you? How can people find the 5-day challenge and just get into your world?
Absolutely. So if you want to stay connected, the best way is to head over to Instagram. I'm at Heart Soul Hustle on Instagram. And if you want to learn like the challenge process, I know we were very esoteric today, which I always love that too. But if you're like, what do I say? What do I do? What do I send? We actually have a toolkit. It's $37. It's called the Challenge Launch Toolkit. You can go to toolkit.heartsoulhustle.com, and it's $37. And we basically give you the entire framework. So we give you email templates. We give you trainings on how to structure your day. We give you a visual chart of how a whole challenge runs. We've got trainings on the challenges. We've got a little bit of Facebook ad bonuses in there if you're thinking about foraying into advertising, which I recommend. But you can check that all out. But the biggest compliment to me is when somebody just DMs me on Instagram and says like, that was helpful, or I appreciated when you said this. So you don't have to pay me to appreciate the conversation. And if you're really feeling froggy, shoot me a message on Instagram. I do respond. I do love hearing from people. And yeah, that's the extent of it. I would love to see you out there. Just if you're like, a challenge is not for me, or I listened to this, or I read the page and it's just not a good fit, that's okay. I would challenge you at the end of this episode to just do one thing you've been putting off, DM me and tell me that you did. That to me would be a huge success and just make this interview all the more worthwhile, even though it was already incredible.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's exactly what I did. I DM'd you as well. And I think we're going to have you come into our Facebook group, our small business, Facebook group. So I'll get in touch with you for that. I think it's such a brilliant way to do marketing that's not just like throwing money in this, at Mr. Mark Zuckerberg.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, Zach.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.